Well, what an adventure it has been so far, my friends. Spawning in the top center position as our red Protoss player. He started off with a really nice lead, but his Zerg opponent brought it even. It is WhiteRa. And spawning in the bottom right, well, I guess just the right position, is going to be our red Zerg player, or blue Zerg player this game. Keep getting confused with these colors switching on me. For Quantic Gaming, he was down 1-3, but he's clawing his way back in. It is HyuN, and he is 7-pooling. So this game is going to be decided either rather quickly or it's going to end up being crazy long. Sometimes players can hold this aggression, but this is the Nexus first map. This is the map where you go for this fast play, because the really interesting thing about this map is that you have a natural in your main. But WhiteRa, he's actually going to scout this super crazily fast. Probably the luckiest probe scout ever. And he's going to come in. He's going to see the drone count. He's going to step up and be like, oh, that spawning pool is about to finish. Maybe I shouldn't Nexus first. So we should see WhiteRa wall this off rather quickly. He's going to get his Forge right now. And he should actually be able to block this. One of the coolest things about this map is that because your natural is in your main, you only need to set up one defense, really. You don't have to forfeit a natural of sorts. So this is definitely going to be holdable by WhiteRa. Imagine if he had scouted here and he went for Nexus first, game's over. But gateway up, should send another pylon to block this and get this cannon up as soon as humanly possible. 8 lings are on the way for HyuN, but it looks like WhiteRa should be able to hold this. It would take a bit of a misstep. It would be a big mistake from WhiteRa if he somehow lost anything to this push. He has his cannon on the way. He should just throw on either another gateway or a pylon, and there it goes. It's going to be a pylon. He's fully walled in. He can kill the pylon later. It's no big deal. By the time HyuN could break that down with a low surface area on this pylon, WhiteRa will be completely fine. And behind this, WhiteRa could just try to transition to one-base play. I feel like the smarter move is always to just macro behind it and just get up an expansion as soon as you can afford it, not take gas. And he's preparing to build something else, but the cannon's done, and WhiteRa's gonna be pretty safe. Now HyuN, he tries to take his natural, but WhiteRa with that probe very smartly blocks that. He's just kind of delaying him as much as he can. He says, "Hey HyuN, you're on one base. I'm on one base. It's like he's not gonna let him expand that easily." HyuN will likely save up and go for that. He didn't take gas, so he's not looking to do any kind of follow-up roach attack. He's not doing any kind of follow-up Zergling, Speedling, Baneling attack, anything like that. He has the Zerglings here. He might try to put on additional pressure, but he can't do anything. He could try to block this space. It's not really significant. WhiteRa's not going to be looking to take a fast third with how late his natural was, and the Overlord sees that WhiteRa will expand. He's not going to try to transition into some 4-gate or anything weird. Like I said, HyuN could have gone for some follow-up all-in. WhiteRa could equally have gone for some sort of big counterattack. But that won't be the case. The Zerglings are going to sit outside WhiteRa's base, and that's really all they can do. He's just trying to keep tabs on what WhiteRa's doing. He knows, okay, Cybernetics Core hasn't started yet. It's going to start pretty much right now. And it's a bit later than WhiteRa might have normally wanted it, but it's not a huge deal. He's still okay for the most part. He got the Nexus up, and that's what really counts most. His expansion's about 60% done, and HyuN's almost 50%. So WhiteRa is totally fine in terms of economy. And HyuN, we're probably not going to see him really do anything, to be honest. He's just going to build up his drone count, try to get some additional mining going. He saturated his main base. Of course, we see that wonderful addition of the numbers, 16 drones. That is the optimal number. It says out of 24, but that's mostly a diminishing returns concept, of course. 16 is the ideal number of workers to have at a base, most cost effective. And WhiteRa, now that he has 16 probes, he's getting ready to saturate his natural. He's going to get a mothership core first, though. Sentry on the way. He actually got the mothership core and the sentry before warp gates, so he wants to make sure that if HyuN does something weird, he's going to be safe. Now HyuN is going for a third base as well, so this is a bit later than your standard fast third for a Zerg against Protoss, but based on the circumstances of the game, it's about normal. The cool thing about things like this 7 pool that we saw this game are the timings are all out the window. WhiteRa, HyuN can't say, oh, well, WhiteRa's not going to Immortal all-in me because it's going to be this mark and he doesn't have this. But that's completely out of the cards. So scouting is going to be a lot more difficult. for these players. And WhiteRa is going to go for a robotics facility opener. And I was actually about to say, WhiteRa is not a player, though, that would go for the 2-base Immortal all-in. That's not how WhiteRa plays this game. And I think that also comes in his attitude about things. WhiteRa is not someone that plays StarCraft because he loves winning games. WhiteRa is someone that loves playing the game. And we've seen that in a lot of his interesting builds, his army composition styles, and just, WhiteRa just being WhiteRa. He's given us some great games, and HyuN is a monster at winning games. And the fact that WhiteRa's been putting up such a good fight, this 3-3 score is really awesome. I was actually a bit scared at the start that HyuN would be doing much better, but we've had a really great series of matches here so far. WhiteRa finishing up some additional gateways. He's moving up to the very standard number of 4. Typically, when you forge fast expand as a Protoss, you want to build up to 4 warp gates, and then get your tech, then build the rest of your warp gates, get an upgrade if you're getting one, and either look to take a 3rd base, get a Twilight Council, or throw down additional gateways. So Lair is going to start now for HyuN, and like I said, this is a normal Lair timing, but of course it's much later than a regular Lair would be in a regular game. So Roach Swarm will also go down, and an Evolution Chamber. This is the very, very standard base layout for a Zerg player against Protoss. At least in Wings of Liberty, and it still works pretty effectively since Zerg doesn't have any new units off of Lair, just some upgraded ones, like the Hydralisk. And I think he's kind of realized that he might need Roaches to help tank and deal a lot of additional damage, because the AoE has worked pretty well against the Hydralisks. Now, WhiteRa's breaking down a pylon. He's going to bring these Immortals and Sentries out, and I feel like with the Mothership Core, he might try to put on a bit of pressure, but he's most likely going to recall with this force. He's just going to use this, maybe try to deny a base, kill some drones. Nothing really serious, and I think the biggest reason he wants to do this is to help secure a 3rd, but with 2 more gateways going down, I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I don't think WhiteRa is the player to go for an all-in off of this, but if he sees an opening, he might, just because he knows that HyuN went for the really fast spawning pool. So with 2 Roaches on the way, HyuN realizes the threat of this pressure. He's throwing up 4 Spine Crawlers. The gateways are completing, so WhiteRa has a choice here. He could go for a really crazy amount of aggression. He's bringing the Mothership Core forward. He's activated the Guardian Shield. He's time warped on the Spine Crawlers that are building. He's going to move in before they finish. HyuN doesn't have any units to deal with this. WhiteRa unleashing the pain. Tons of units dying. The drones are trying to be pulled, but they go through the time warp, and they move so slowly. The Mothership Core looks like it's going to finally die, but the Immortal is the one that's dealing all the damage, and the first Immortal will also die. I feel like maybe instead of the second time warp, you could deal all that damage and then recall. Of course, WhiteRa did lose some of his expensive units, but with this Immortal, this push can still go on. HyuN is going to try to respond with a ton of Zerglings, and I think right now WhiteRa just needs to get out of here, and it's going to be difficult, but without Roach speed complete, he should be able to. The Zergling speed did complete, though, so he's going to warp in some additional Zealots, and WhiteRa, he might actually just go all in with this. He's making additional Immortals. I would say he does an Immortal all in. But he's building up a nice force here, and he's just pushing in. I guess the whole reason he might have done this is because it's very unusual for him. This is just going to be so... It's so awkward because HyuN still has saturation, right? He's at 13 drones. He's only 3 away from being good. Lost a lot at the main, though. And the natural base is optimal saturation, so HyuN can make units. He's not in the worst position ever, especially since WhiteRa is only on 2 base. He's cut most of his pro production. And, well, he's going to try to step up again. These Roaches got a really nice concave on the Stalkers, but the 2 Immortals in the back are uncontested, and a time warp goes down, preventing some of these units from stepping forward. Now, the Queens are actually the least affected unit by time warp, but another force field goes down, and WhiteRa looks like he may be able to push in and just kill HyuN here. A lot of forces available. He's going to move up into the main base of HyuN, and the Roach Warren's going to fall. This is looking very, very bad. The Roach is trying to go up to fight through the force fields, but there's choke point by the... Oh, man, that's such a hard position to be in. He's running through this choke. Force field's so strong in some of these situations, and these Immortals just unleashing pain. It looks like WhiteRa may be able to steal game number 7 here, and that will be GG from HyuN. WhiteRa goes up 4-3 with the only build that I would have said he wouldn't do. And that's an Immortal Sentry all-in. So, well played by WhiteRa. You even fooled me. Sometimes the most special tactic is the one that's pretty common, just not expected from you. So that was a pretty good game. I have to say, WhiteRa's been picking his builds really really well. The Stargate cancel on Neoplanet was like that blew my mind. And in this game, the only build that really would have worked as a great follow up to the failed 7 pool was an Immortal push. It wasn't the Immortal push, of course, because everything was changed up based on the 6 pull. But he did go for a big Immortal timing, and that worked really well. So HyuN tried to be greedy and go to the fast third and get all that saturation before he made tech, and he paid for it with this game. So we're going to go on to game number 8. This best of 9 is going the distance. Is HyuN going to be able to be able to pull himself back here, or is WhiteRa going to be able to wrap up this show match? Stay tuned.